Let's take a look what's happening right now. Hundreds of protesters at the National Mall taking on the Trump administration's cuts to research funding, the mass firing of federal employees, and political interference in federal research.
We are looking at the most aggressively anti-science government the United States has ever had.
We will not stand for the dismantling of the American scientific workforce.
Do not be intimidated. Do not back down. Do not let them silence you or the science that keeps us all safe.
The Stand Up for Science protest happening in other cities across the country as well. The organizers are scientists, generally with little experience in political activism, but they do have a central message to the nation's lawmakers. Science is for everyone. Joining me, Democratic strategist and author of the Salty Politics newsletter on Substack, Julie Roginski. So, Julie, the New York Times reports that Stand Up for Science leaders threw together a website so rudimentary initially that visitors had to type the www in manually or else the address raised an error. Within days, an improved site received so much traffic it crashed. Is this the kind of ground-up energy that Democrats need right now, or is it just more noise?
Absolutely. This is exactly what Democrats need right now because the leadership of the Democratic Party is falling short, quite honestly, in communicating our values. And so it remains that it has to be people like these people who have never been really politically engaged before and others in the grassroots who are saying very plainly, as Americans, not as professional activists, not as professional politicians, that we are in great peril. And nobody better to explain that than the people who've devoted their lives to protecting ours, which is what these scientists have done. I mean, their advances are keeping us healthy. Their advances are keeping us safe. Their advances are moving humanity forward in ways that I think very few other professions are. And so for them to come out and say this is exactly what the Democratic Party needs to activate to activate the messaging that we need to get out there to the American people.
So there's a little devil's advocate here, right? There was no shortage of grassroots activism in the run-up to the November election. And it seemed to be focused in the right way, right? Like get out the vote, talk to your neighbors. So is it clear what didn't resonate from that? How do you work to take this and get it to resonate in a way that frankly, moves you toward the midterms if you're a Democrat?
That's a great question. The problem for the Democratic Party is, I think, at the very top, the people who get the megaphone much more so than people like this. There is an absence of an ability to communicate like normal Americans. They focus group everything. They wait until those focus groups come back. They sit around and determine how to communicate. By the time that's all said and done, Donald Trump's already done 15 different things, and we've moved on from whatever the thing that was focus group is talking about. This is exactly what people need right now, because this is regular Americans speaking in plain English, I would hope. I hope they're not being too scientific, because most of us didn't do so well in biology in 9th grade. I speak for myself. But if they're just out there explaining very clearly in plain English what is at stake right now, not for them and their profession, but for all of us who are counting on experts like them to keep us safe. And the fact that there is a death of expertise that is happening all across the federal government right now, that's not some esoteric concept. It's truly something that is going to put all of us in grave danger if it's not addressed. If they're explaining it in those kinds of terms, I think people will listen because these are their neighbors. These are regular people who live across the country who are experts in this field.
When do you think you'll know as a Democrat when it's resonating? And by that, like Ben Wickler, the head of the Wisconsin Democratic Party, was talking about early next month, there's going to be a state Supreme Court election. Right. Will there be turnout? There normally isn't in, an off election like that. Will it be Democrats returning to donating to causes? We've heard from lots of Democrats the money isn't coming in. How do you see if something like this actually is connecting?
Well, there's a special election, 2 special elections in Florida that are taking place as well next month that I think are very important. They're in very red districts, but one of them is Matt Gaetz's former district. But nevertheless, we'll see what kind of turnout we get. We'll see what kind of energy we get. My God, if we pick off one of those 2 seats, that will be a huge bellwether.
But you're not expecting that.
Not expecting it, but it's possible. Anything's possible. In fact, in cases like this, you kind of see these harbingers coming for the next midterm when you have turnout that we expect to see in these kinds of races. There's a special election for Lee Stefanik's seat that'll eventually take place at some point this year. We'll see about that. You know, in terms of donation, I understand why people are reluctant to donate, because you're donating to the DNC, you're donating to these congressional committees, you're donating to these Senate committees. And the truth of the matter is, it's up to our leaders in those committees to show us that they're using that money wisely. And right now, to be honest, I'm not seeing that. What I am seeing is huge, tremendous anger within the grassroots across the country at what's happening in Washington. And that's the kind of anger that you're going to be able to harness to effectuate change.
Julie Roginski, good to see you.
Thank you.
Thanks for coming in.